So yesterday, about a third of our congregation and several from Farmington joined thousands of our fellow UUs that amounted to about a third of UU congregations worldwide, took up the invitation to approach questions and challenges of climate justice and applying those to our Four Corners context. We'll have a chance at the first part of our reflection to hear some reactions from those of you who are here who want to share with those of us who weren't in terms of your reactions about how that day went for you. But I loved the energy and the focus that was brought into this room yesterday. We imagined, we stretched and explored and surfaced, we revived and revised many creative ideas about how we can serve climate justice needs in our community, creating a renewed and expanded sense of purpose for our social responsibility and justice teams, remapping responsibility and the paths of action that we can take with ourselves and in our community and with community partners going forward. All this work is designed to work towards realizing our future in a thriving, sustainable environment in this region that we live in. I've adapted the rest of my remarks based on some communications and materials that came from the organizers of the revival. At the deepest level, this revival is grounded in UU spirituality with love at the center. Instead of facts and figures and doom and gloom, the revival calls us into reimagining, into joy, offering what each of us have to offer instead of what feels like a should. With love at the center of our faith, we ask ourselves, how do we center love in the UU climate movement, and in particular here? The love that lives at the center of our faith is a love that expects nothing less of us than the rebuilding of this struggling world. We hold a love greater than we know between and among us, born from all that we hold holy. It takes many of us in community to insist that a better future is possible. It starts when we faithfully ground our climate commitments in justice and the reality that climate change has the same roots as the extractive systems of harm and systemic oppression as all of the injustices we fight so hard against. With the same roots and intersecting harms, climate justice is racial justice. Climate justice is gender justice, disability justice, mental health justice, immigration justice, LGBTQIA+ justice, earth justice, and more. When we provide safe housing for the trans teen rejected by their parents living without shelter from climate disasters, when we offer sanctuary for our neighbors forced from their homes by climate disruption, when we open doors as emergency shelters, when we advocate for labor protections for people working in extreme heat, when we fiercely defend our ecosystems, our water, our soils, our air, saving them not just for the privileged few, but for all of our beloved communities. When we root our climate commitments in these challenging realities, love grounds. Love at the center of climate strategy connects when we realize that even as the root causes are inextricably linked, so too must be solutions. When we refuse to overlook climate injustice, when we shift from me and mine to we and ours, when we understand our interdependence, when we know in our bodies that the work is more than technical solutions for those who can afford solar or electric cars. When we advocate for clean energy, clean water, clean air as human rights, as nature rights, as earth rights, love connects. Love at the center of our climate resilience builds when we overwhelm the challenging realities with community care. As Toni Morrison says, it's not possible to constantly hold on to crisis. You have to have the love. You have to have the magic. When we share snacks at our meetings, as we knit socks and crack jokes, when we strategize our future, when we laugh and play, when we draw on our faith, our inner strength, our hopes, our dreams, our creativity, when we creatively and joyfully elevate the many, many, many challenging realities with collective care, when we recognize and honor the places where our deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet, when we listen, when we faithfully respond, when we embrace imperfection and offer grace, when we listen with curiosity and intention, when we communicate with humility and care, when we offer joy in the struggle, love nurtures. Love at the center of our UU climate movement reimagines a flourishing world. When we dream about what could be, when we commit to make it so, when we clasp hands and say, yes, we can do this, even when we may not know how. When we guide our shared work with hope for the future and commitment to collective liberation, when we save what we love, when we joyfully, faithfully, imperfectly, and beautifully recreate our world so that all of our communities thrive, love reimagines. When love is at the center of our climate movements, love grounds, love connects, love builds, love transforms, love nourishes, love reimagines. May it be so.
So as we gathered around tables yesterday, reimagining the world through the frame of climate justice, holding the expansiveness and intersections of that work, I paused and I paid attention to the beauty of the room. I saw the small groups huddled over tables, cluttered with paper, markers, and colored pencils and coffee cups. I saw, inside that deep pause of bearing witness to the world just as it is, people finding their way towards freedom, discovering connection, people learning and growing, imagining collective liberation, and falling in love with all that we can create together. It reminded me of the Joy Harjo poem, Perhaps the World Ends Here, which is a poem about the way in which the world is created at the kitchen table. The building of community, the nurturing of family, meals, and stories. She writes, "The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on." The poem continues, "At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow, we pray of suffering and remorse, and we give thanks." And so we gathered around tables, creating and recreating the world together, infusing our work with life, with commitment, with hope, with love, kitchen table conversations acknowledge that enduring change is rooted in the most personal and intimate spaces of our lives, the spaces where we show up to talk, disagree, learn, commune, cry, laugh, and dream together. Inside, feeling our way towards justice, every spark of imagination lighting the way to collective liberation. And it has been this way since creation, and so it will go on. We cannot underestimate the power of such gatherings to alter the course of the future. Indeed, as we continue to navigate a messy world, a painful world, a world hungry for our Unitarian Universalist values, we ought to make more time to gather at the kitchen table together. It is where we meet across the generations, across experience, across differences. It is where love takes root in history and liberation comes alive. The transformative power of our gatherings hit home for me when the youngest among us approached me and invited me to sign a commitment to care for the earth. It was a powerful and beautiful moment, and it emerged out of us being together. And that's the power of our multi-generational spaces. And then, as I continued to reflect on the day, I thought, what are we talking about when we talk about collective liberation in the context of climate justice? Black civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer said it like this: nobody's free until everybody's free. I'll say it one more time. Nobody's free until everybody's free. A central lesson from the revival was connecting deeply with the ways in which climate justice is racial justice, disability justice, gender and sexual justice, economic justice. It is in confronting the history and harms of colonialism, because we know that climate change impacts people differently. An important part of this work is deepening an understanding of these differences, learning from them, and joining communities in harm's way, in solidarity, and yes, at the kitchen table. It is where we can truly embrace our interdependence and bravely and courageously proclaim for the whole world, none of us are free until all of us are free. May the revival live on in our communities, and as we keep gathering at the kitchen table, and may it live on in our music and song together. May it be so.
For those of us who were there yesterday, please help me in this refrain. We imagine together a world where love is at the center. This became our mantra yesterday. We recited it. It was a call and response time and time again. Early in the day, as Liesl and Tom asked us to reimagine this kind of a world with love at its center, I thought big. I thought first of a tiny country, Bhutan, in the eastern Himalaya, that takes very seriously its gross national happiness philosophy. One of the pillars, there are 4 pillars, one of the pillars of this philosophy is conservation of the environment. So they preserve 60% at all times, 60% of their land under forest cover. The people of the Buddhist kingdom believe that they have a fundamental birthright to live their life in a healthy environment. Throughout the day, as we broke down what this reimagined world could look like, we focused not only on the environmental injustices that serve as real barriers to a healthy environment, but the many other injustices that Tom and Jamie have mentioned, and how they're all connected. As chair of the social responsibility team here and justice team, we do a great job addressing many of the injustices. And so I know it's kind of small to see, but this is just a chart of the many teams that operate under social responsibility and justice. A basic needs team, anti-racism team, preserve democracy team, immigration team, environmental justice team, LGBTQIA team, plus team. So we do a lot. We're very active. What we don't do so well, or as much as we'd like to, is to systematically analyze how these injustices are all connected and focus on solutions that address the root causes of these injustices, the same root causes that the extractive systems of harm and systematic oppression, as Tom talked about, cause the climate crisis. An example of attempting to address the root causes of many of these injustices, I hold up our very own Manna Soup Kitchen, who many of you are involved with. They describe themselves as a resource center that offers services and connects people to resources in order to address the root causes of poverty, hunger, hardship, homelessness, through equipping our community with the skills and resources needed to move forward. So they offer some services that address immediate needs. They offer some services that really focus on long-term success of their clientele. Some of the immediate services that they offer are free hot meals, 365 days a week, and a beautiful new pavilion for dining. A free grocery market, a backpack program that offers 7 meals per week during the school year to low-income students. And some of the long-term issues that they offer are case management for people exiting the Department of Corrections on parole, which focuses on employment, education, transportation, and housing. A culinary program, which offers a free 5-week job skills training class, after which people receive a 3-year food handling license. A community garden, which not only grows food for Manna meals and for the Manna market, but which also serves as an excellent demonstration site for small plot bio-intensive growing methods. They help with homeless prevention, with back rent, utilities, short-term rent loans to keep people housed. In describing their community expectations, Manna holds that the dignity and confidentiality of each person is recognized and respected, and everyone has the right to feel safe. So with Manna as a model, using this kinds of system thinking about injustices, our challenge is to reimagine our own work and the work of the many single-issued focused nonprofits in our community as being all connected, and to look for ways to partnership with each other for greater impact and less redundancy. We're beginning to do this with our social justice teams, with the Native Hope Ministry partnership that we have recently developed to address food insecurity on the Navajo Nation, the League of Women Voters, and many other organizations to address the very real threat to our democracy. So I challenge you, I challenge us, I charge you, I charge us with examining your independent, your individual strengths and your passions, and how these strengths and passions and skills can contribute to our efforts to dismantle all these injustices, even just a little bit. So you were told what was happening after the service. I don't have to talk about that, but I do want to end with a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who acknowledged in his I Have a Dream speech in 1963 the white people in the crowd And he said, they have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom.